Mm. Hey everybody, it looks like our guest for today is having some technical difficulties, so we're gonna get started in a little bit. Today's topic is on the intersection of climate and immigration. So we're just gonna be diving into all the things that come with both of those issues and how they intersect and affect our community. So both of those issues are really big priorities in the Latinx community, obviously with immigration. But more recently, our community has expressed concern as far as the climate crisis and what it means for not only our community living here in the United States, but our communities all over the world. So let's see if we can get our guest on. Okay, so it might be a couple minutes, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm giving a little bit of a background into what our topic was for today, which again is the intersection of the climate crisis and immigration. We know that both of these issues have been really big talking points, especially in this last election cycle, and they have been, oh, there we go, here's Edwin. Let's see. There we go. Hey, Edwin.
Hey Jen, how are you?
I'm
Sorry,
good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Sorry, Instagram was giving me a hard time.
That's okay. I just kind of started talking a little bit about our topic for today. But before we do that, let's go back a little bit and just give our introductions. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jen. I'm the environmental organizer at Poder Latinx in Florida. I'm based out of Orlando, and this is our third episode of our new environmental Instagram series where we dive into different topics among the environmental justice campaign that we have. And today I have my friend Edwin joining me to talk a little bit, to help me talk a little bit about immigration, which is one of his specialties. So I'm going to give him the mic so that he can introduce himself.
Well, hey everybody, my name's Edwin Arredondo. I am the digital organizer here in Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, all of Arizona. And a lot of my work comes through immigration. Me being a product of immigration, both of my parents are were undocumented immigrants. Both of my older siblings are DACA recipients, so this is a topic that hits close to home, as well as always being a part of a working class community. It has always affected my neighbors, my friends, my friends' families, my friends' parents. So there's a topic that hits close to home, and I'm happy to be here to bring some knowledge to the community.
Yes, thank you so much. So, like Edwin said, this topic on immigration is, I think, something that affects all of us. As far as the climate crisis, this is an issue that is particularly of interest for the younger or the younger members of our community. But at the same time, a lot of us being first generation Americans, like Edwin and myself, we know that these two issues are not separate, that they intersect. Specifically, we know that immigration is not, the climate crisis is not only a reality here in the United States, but it's a big reality for our communities living back home from where we're from, in the countries that we're from. And it's causing a lot of people to have to migrate to different places because of the situations in their home countries. So, Edwin, what I wanted to ask you, like, what do you know specifically about the intersection of these two issues? How do you know that the climate crisis is affecting our communities back in our home countries?
Well, to start, I guess to give it a little context, the U.S. has contributed to most of the climate crisis because it emits more greenhouse greenhouse gases than any other country. Um, so I mean, it holds some type of responsibility to 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 ensure the safety of these countries, of our home countries. More than 21 million people are pushed from their homes every year because of climate-related hazards. This is storms, floods, things that happen immediately that people need to leave their countries. But this doesn't even include the number of people that deal with drought, and so the number is much, much bigger. So these people need a place to go, and I mean, here in the U.S., we have offered some type of solution, which has been TPS, temporary protected status, but that has only been a temporary solution up till now. It doesn't offer protection until people get actually here into the country. So, and then once once their country is not protected anymore, they are sent back. So they need a more permanent solution to being here in the U.S. and being protected from these natural causes.
Yes, absolutely. Kind of touching on what you said, the United States is responsible for a lot of different things all over the world, and one of those things, maybe they're not responsible completely, but the United States is one of the biggest polluters there is in the world. And when we see that the climate crisis is disproportionately affecting brown and black communities, we don't only mean here in the United States. We mean that these huge corporations that are polluting our planet, this pollution, this climate emergency is felt most in underdeveloped countries that don't have the infrastructure to really respond properly to these emergencies, and at no fault of their own, right? So unfortunately, the people living in these countries are forced to leave the only place that they know and try to find a better place for them and their families, somewhere safer, away from, like you said, all these different natural disasters, extreme weather, that's both hot and cold weather. And, you know, a lot of people, that's part of the misinformation too. Like, one of the problems is misinformation, that they say, well, if we're experiencing all this like extreme cold weather, like, how can you say that the earth is getting hotter? Well,
Right.
that
Because weather, but that's the big, but weather is different from climate. Like, it's
exactly.
two. So just because it's 30 degrees outside doesn't mean that the climate's not getting hotter in general.
Yeah, and you'd think that our elected officials would know the difference between these two
Right.
things they taught us in high school, but unfortunately that's not the case, and they're helping fuel that misinformation that exists within our community and within other communities that unfortunately don't have the proper resources to know what's true and what's a myth, right?
Right.
So, so yeah, like you said, there's a lot of people that are immigrating out of their countries into the United States. And although the United States is responsible for a lot of the damages that they're seeing in their home countries, they're not taking accountability, and they're not providing any help to these people for them to permanently settle here in the United States and provide a better future for their families. So that's one of the intersections that we know between climate and immigration. Underdeveloped countries, you know, they aren't equipped to face the realities that the climate crisis has given us and will continue to give us, because we know that climate change is just going to continue to fuel hotter heat waves and these winter storms that we saw in just the last couple weeks, and hurricanes, earthquakes, and it's only going to continue to get worse, and more people are going to suffer, and those people predominantly are going to be brown and black, right? So next on our agenda is, let's talk a little bit about immigrants in the United States facing the climate crisis. So we talked about, you know, our communities back home and how the climate crisis is affecting them and making them come to the United States. So what happens to them once they're in the United States? Immigrants that are running from climate crisis and other problems in their home countries. Let's talk about how the United States is, what the United States is doing to help our community and immigrants in the United States. So for me, for example, I know that, you know, the list of different extreme weather stuff that we've seen in the past couple years, the wildfires, even the winter storm that we saw in Texas, the extreme heat that we see in Arizona, all of those things are disproportionately affecting Latinx communities, right? Especially when they're not able to just pack up and you know, book a flight somewhere safer, or that if they are able to leave or evacuate, they're coming home to their houses being in ruins, or their properties damaged, their belongings damaged. So we know that this is all disproportionately affecting also low income people, because they don't have the ability to just rebuild immediately, right? So what can you tell me about the community in Arizona and how they're dealing specifically, with the extreme heat that you guys are facing? What resources do your representatives have or your community have for low-income people facing all these like climate crisis effects?
Well, I'll start by saying that, and in communities of low income, there's not enough green spaces. There, coding for building regulations for air quality are non-existent. So you don't have parks to produce more oxygen, to produce cleaner air, and you have more gas stations. You have power plants. Things you don't see in higher income communities that would affect the air. Most recently with COVID, it had been shown that lower quality of air was producing a higher COVID rate because of the lack of the lack of air, and it was producing a harder to breathe. So it was attacking the Latin community, Black and Brown community harder than any other community. In turn, here in Arizona, we need to fight for these green spaces. We need to fight for these regulations for coding and for building and for gas, especially gas stations. You go to a higher income community, you hardly see any gas stations that you can fuel up. So there needs to be more regulation with that, and also with the power outages in Texas, low income communities were the most affected. They were the longest affected. They were the first hit. People can't just get up easily and move and get a hotel in another, easily go to Cancun like Ted Cruz, right? You can't just get up and go. So these people, you're staying bunked up. You have your kids, you have your family, and you can't just get up and go and find a hotel somewhere where they have power. These are the type, and in California, with the wildfires, the same thing. You're having a drought, you're having wildfires, you can't get up and relocate. And that's why. And another article I saw is that, especially in Texas, was that Black and Brown communities, but working class communities, but also white working class communities were being affected in the same manner. But this whole Trump wave that is right now is making this white working class Americans think that anything that's good for Black and Brown Americans is not good for them. Right? So they don't necessarily support the changes that need to be done in the community because they think that they should be against it because it helps Black and Brown communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this huge divide that exists right now in the United States is definitely fueling, this like science deniers and, people that are thinking like, in order to align to my communities or the people that I think represent me, in order to align to their beliefs, like I have to deny what I'm seeing happening. And that's, what we saw in Texas, the wildfires in California, all these different things that you can't deny they're happening. I mean, how can you explain it other than the fact that our planet is suffering, right? And talking a little bit about what happened in Texas, like if you look at the fatalities that there was in Texas, like you are gonna see that they're low income people that weren't able, like you said, to just get up and go to Mexico or wherever they wanted for a warmer climate or a vacation. No, these people had to live with the reality of a freezing state and with no power. And it's really horrible when you think about it, especially like that these people are brown and Black, the people who are suffering. And I also read something that said like the communities that were being powered, they were just gentrified communities. They were predominantly white, high income communities that still had their power on. So you can kind of see how we're left behind once again, and it's not by accident. They're gonna prioritize a certain type of people when it comes down to it. And unfortunately, that's something that we've seen for a really long time, and it's going to continue to worsen as our climate worsens. They're going to continue to leave a certain type of people behind when it comes to aid and when it comes to keeping their lights on and all these different things that are going to help people face the climate crisis. And I think it's important to talk a little bit about the misinformation that went around Texas and how a lot of elected officials were trying to blame renewable energy, on the fact that there was these widespread blackouts throughout Texas that caused all these different things that we saw in the news, that people freezing and people, having to do all these extraordinary things just to have a little bit of heat for their family. When in reality, it was the renewable energy, the power plants that were fueled by renewable energy that were most reliable. I mean, they weren't 100% reliable because it was extreme weather that nobody was prepared for, but they were more reliable than the power plants that were fueled by natural gas, which is gas is what really powers Texas right now. And I think this is important to note, specifically for my community here in Orlando, which I'm working with. Our utilities company, OUC, has just announced that they're going to stop burning coal and transition to natural gas, and they're promising us that they're ready for a climate emergency if it happens, like it happened in Texas, that they're ready to provide us with energy, and nothing's going to happen. But how can you say that when it's been proven that the power blackouts in Texas were caused by frozen gas pipes? So, it's a lot of misinformation that they're feeding us, and that we're expected to believe it without like thinking twice about it. And that's why we're doing these kind of things, to let people know, like, it's not always what they say. They're doing it on purpose, to try to get us not to fight back to their decisions. And yeah, I think, is there anything else that you wanted to add about that? Like, do you know how Arizona might be prepared for a climate crisis, or if they even are prepared?
No, I don't think in both Texas and in California, with both extreme situations, they weren't prepared. And that just goes to show that two of the biggest states in the U.S., if they're not prepared, how are other states going to be prepared? How are we going to believe that they are prepared? And this whole idea with that the renewable energy was to blame for the power outages, or the new greenhouse deal was to blame for the power outages, something that hadn't been signed when this happened. This misinformation is not allowing people the knowledge that they need to have for them to act, for them to act with their legislators, for them to act with their state, so that they can get these resources, so that we can be prepared. Here in Arizona, we need to be prepared for the heat that's coming. I mean, the summer's coming, and these are some of the things that here, even though here in Arizona we have a really red state locally, there's a Republican trifecta here in the government. These are things we're fighting for, that we need to get resources here for not just our Black and brown community, not just, it's for everybody. At the end of the day, everybody's affected by climate change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's not just, when we say it's, mostly affecting, that doesn't mean that it's going to just skip over,
Yeah.
else. It's definitely going to affect everybody, and we need to be in it together, because this divide that exists between, climate deniers and climate fighters, I guess, or climate change fighters, like, it shouldn't be like that. Like, at the end of the day, it's one planet, and we're all gonna, unfortunately, deal with the consequences of a warming planet that was caused not even by us. It was caused by huge corporations, huge powers like the United States, and all these other countries that are not taking now they're not taking accountability for the damages that they caused to everybody around the world. We need worldwide with cooperation in order to fight this climate crisis. And like you said, we saw California and Texas that, should be some of the states that are most prepared because of their big populations. Not only their big populations, but their big Latinx population that they have. And unfortunately, they weren't prepared. And we saw how that, destroyed entire like communities, and it's just really devastating. And I think, this is, like I said, this is only going to continue to get worse, and we need to take what happened and just learn from it. I think, we need to invest in renewable energy. We need to leave this fossil fuel era behind. We're part of a campaign called Build Back Fossil Free, urging the Biden administration to leave this fossil fuel era behind, and understand that in order to ensure an equitable and healthy future and communities for everyone, we need to stop the burning of fossil fuel and transition completely to renewable energy. We need to prioritize communities of color when we talk about clean energy plans, and when we talk about defeating the climate crisis, because we are the ones that are most affected in the end of the day, and you can't bring about solutions without considering the people that are most affected by it. And also, we just need better immigration reform, right, to account for the fact that the climate crisis is only gonna continue to increase decrease the amount of immigrants that we have coming into the country, looking for, just a healthier community. But at the end of the day, it's really devastating to see how our country treats these refugees. And we need better immigration reform. We need better environmental reform. And also, just quickly, when we talk about environmental justice, we also talk about the access to energy that our Latinx communities have. And that kind of goes into what happened in Texas. Like, how reliable is our energy access for communities of color, and how affordable is it? Because at the end of the day, we're in a pandemic that a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are working from home. Energy bills are going up and they can't pay it. And these utilities companies like OUC that claim that they're doing so much for their low income communities aren't really doing much. And, they're cutting off power. They're increasing rates during a pandemic, and they think that nobody's going to call them out for it, especially OUC, who has 40% of their customers low income, yet they have a program that helps less than 1% of their customers. But then they claim that they're doing so much for their communities, which is it's honestly just so horrible. And, a lot of people don't know about it. So this is why we're doing this. This is why I do the work I do in Orlando around OUC's plan and OUC in general, and the detrimental effects that it has on our community here. And hopefully, we're able to bring in all the community members that are most affected by it, and that we can push OUC to transition to renewable energy, something that we need to see across the country in order to really put an end to the climate crisis before it's too late.
Yeah, Jen. I think the biggest disservice that we can do for everybody is deny it. Continue to let our communities die and suffer from pollution and climate disasters, and a pandemic that affects everybody, not just people of color, but that disproportionately kills essential workers who are people of color and the most vulnerable. So there's a lot that we can do, but the first step is just to believe that there's something that needs to be done. Here in Arizona, we need to ask our leaders. We need to ask President Biden let them know that it's time to act on the climate crisis, and they need to put plans into action. I know that Biden has been signing executive orders, but he needs to really put pressure. He needs to really make sure that he needs to make sure that he's fulfilling on his promises that we voted him for. The same community that's going to vote in 4 years can vote him out. We need to make sure that what he signed on for, that he is fulfilling. I don't know. It just blows my mind how climate crisis is a political decision. Like you can choose a side and pretend like it's not affecting you because you're a Republican or you're a climate denier. Our communities need a way forward for today, because we have very little time to overturn what's happening. Our TPS people need to be protected with long-term results. People on DACA need to be protected on long-term results. We need a DREAM Act. We need a crisis reform. So I agree with you, and I'm so thankful for you having me here, Jen, because we really do need to uplift this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the most important things we can do right now is hold the Biden administration accountable for all the things that they promised that they would do. But going beyond that too, like understanding from the recent events that maybe the things that they promise aren't enough to really combat the climate crisis. We need bold action in order to really make a difference. And it's, like I said, it's only going to continue to get worse. And the next 4 years are crucial to bring back all this stuff that has caused the climate crisis. And that's what we're here for, to hold the administration accountable, let them know you respond to us, we voted you in, now you have to keep up your promises, and then also protect our communities and center our communities when you talk about anything that comes with environmental justice and environmental work. And I also wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about any national immigration updates that you wanted to do, or maybe bring in any of the work that you guys are doing in Arizona, because I know you guys are doing really great work over there. So if you wanted to share anything, now is the time.
Yeah, no, we're just here in Arizona. We're currently our legislative session is open right now. So there's a lot of attacks on our voting rights here in Arizona. A lot of bills being proposed and I think throughout all of the U.S., there's a lot of bills being proposed against your voting rights. So here in Arizona and throughout, we need to stay informed. We need to make sure that our legislators are voting for the things we need, and not suppress our vote, not suppress our voice. And this conversation about the environment, the climate crisis, it needs to be promoted and stay informed on that as well. The heat in here in Arizona is coming back. We need to make sure that we have two major energy companies here, SRP and I think is you. I can't remember the other name, but they basically monopolized the energy system here in Arizona, and they almost attempt to rise the prices without any thinking that nobody can tell them anything. So we need to make sure we hold them accountable. We need to make sure that we don't allow them to do this to us. And just because we get a bill that says $500, we shouldn't allow to think this is normal because it's hot here in Arizona. So the heat is coming. Our legislative session is open, and we need to make sure that we vote and we stay informed.
Absolutely. I think a really great opportunity there for y'all in Arizona is to kind of look at the work that we're doing here with OUC around their rates and them raising their prices, especially during a pandemic that is still happening. We're a year in, and like I said, OUC's low income customers are a lot greater when you compare it to other utilities companies in Florida. So it's super important for us to not only pay attention to our representatives, but also the companies that are here to service us. And utility is not a privilege. It's it's something that everybody needs, and when everybody doesn't have access to it, that's when it's a problem. That's when it becomes an environmental justice problem, and that's what we're doing here in Orlando, or one of the things we're focusing on. So I did want to invite you all real quick, if you're in Orlando, specifically East Orlando, to join us for our community meetings that we have every other Thursday. There's one this week on Thursday at 6 p.m. and we're going to be talking about our fight against OUC, what our next steps are, and this is led by the community. We have this, we build a space for it, but really it's the community who's letting us know what they want to do, and then from there, we move forward on the next steps that they give us. So that's again on Thursday. You can sign up and register for that on our Instagram link tree. You'll see the ECOPODER landing page, and then you can register for the Zoom on there. But other than that, we have our other Instagram episode will be in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, same time. You guys can get more information about that in the next coming week about what it's going to be about. There's a lot of things going on in Florida that we need to touch on. There's some preemption energy bills that are in the legislature that are basically trying to take away local authority when it comes to energy, and it's very detrimental because they'll have the power to just continue to place all these plants and other nasty stuff in low-income communities without community input. So definitely want to touch on that in the next coming weeks, and I hope you all will join us. We're almost at 4:30. Edwin, if there's anything else that you wanted to add. If not, I think that's it for this episode.
No, yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Jen, for having this conversation and inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're both from Poder. Edwin and I are both doing maybe different work in different states, but at the end of the day, it all intersects not only on an organization level, but just as an issue-based stuff. All our issues intersect. We do environmental, immigrant, and economic, and all of these things. We could have even invited another guest and talked about economic implications of the climate crisis and immigration. So maybe that's the next episode. So that's a good idea. I'm gonna write that down. But yeah, thank you, Edwin, so much. Really great convo. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you guys need anything, you could just DM the Poder Instagram account, and you can reach me through there, and then any questions that you might have. So thank you all again. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you, Edwin.
Bye. Thank you.